The grandma took charge after receiving the worst room on her holiday. Chapter 1. The Mysterious Beginning. From the moment Ethel stepped into the lavish resort, she felt the weight of unspoken secrets buzzing in the air. The grand chandelier shimmered like stars trapped in crystal, but her heart sank as she was shown to her room. "This cannot be right," she whispered, eyes widening at the tiny, dimly lit cubicle that stood in stark contrast to her son Mark's suite. A sprawling room with ocean views and plush furnishings. The wallpaper was peeling, a faded floral pattern that seemed to mock her, while the echoes of laughter floated down the corridor, taunting her sense of belonging. Outside, children played in the sun, their joyous shouts like music, but here, silence wrapped around her like a cold, damp blanket. The room felt suffocating, each breath heavier than the last, as she peered out her small window to see her family celebrating without her. She was supposed to be a matriarch, a beacon of wisdom and warmth. Instead, Ethel felt like a ghost drifting through the happy chaos of her family reunion. Each joyous gathering seemed to whisper, "You don't belong." The laughter rang hollow, and she felt a lump rise in her throat, a tightness in her chest at the realization that she was fading into the background. As dusk fell, shadows crept through her room, heightening her sense of invisibility. The distant laughter morphed into a desperate cacophony of survival, every family member pretending, each bearing their own hidden struggles beneath the surface. Curiosity piqued. Ethel's thoughts spiraled like a fury of unanswered questions. What was Mark hiding? She couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was lurking beneath the surface of the lavish feasts and grand smiles. Just as evening descended, Ethel bumped into Alex and Sophie in the hallway, their faces glowing with youthful exuberance. "Grandma, come play with us!" they chirped, bright-eyed and innocent. But as they spoke about games and food, Ethel felt a pull towards the darkness that had begun to consume her heart. She longed to share her own burdens, to show them that life wasn't just perfect outings and lavish gifts. The air thickened with unspoken truth. "You know," she began hesitantly, "not everything is as it seems." Suddenly, a scandal erupted nearby, Mark's name being whispered among the adults. Ethel's heart raced. Had they found out? Was she the last to know? It seemed as if the fabric of their perfect family was slowly unraveling, and she stood on the precipice, torn between protecting her son and standing up for herself. Would this be the moment she reclaimed her voice? Would she risk her connection to Mark, or pave the way to true honesty? The swirling uncertainty wrapped around her as the night deepened, leaving Ethel to ponder. A confrontation loomed ahead, and she could feel the weight of her decision more than ever as she turned to find her family. A question weighed heavily on her heart. Could facing the truth unite them, or would it tear them apart? Ethel hesitated, heart thumping in her chest. She turned away from the fleeting joy of her grandchildren, every fiber of her being yearning for clarity. The laughter dwindled, yet the commotion of her family echoed in her mind. Truths simmered under a delicate facade, and she needed to know. Was Mark hiding something monumental? With a deep breath, she stepped back into the corridor, determined to weave her way through the throngs of relatives. She heard snippets of conversation. Laughter washed over her like an icy wave, but her focus shifted as she approached the main hall. The gathering was vibrant, yet Ethel felt the shadows creeping closer, smothering her spirit. Suddenly, the air cracked like thunder. A woman burst through the doors, breathless and shaken. Her hair hung wild, eyes flaring with urgency. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "It's happening! You need to—" The room fell into tense silence. Ethel felt chills race up her spine. A woman, someone Ethel didn't recognize, glanced around, a fire igniting behind her gaze. "I can't keep this a secret any longer." "Mark," her voice trembled, barely holding space for the words that hung there like a sword poised to fall. "Mark?" Ethel's voice barely carried above the sudden wave of whispers. She shoved through the crowd, urgency urging her feet to fly. But as Mark stepped forward, his face paled. The woman's wild eyes locked onto him, standing in front of others, but almost in a separate world. "He's been lying to all of you. The real reason for this reunion? It's not what you think." Ethel's heart dropped with each word, an invisible weight crashing down onto her chest. "What do you mean, Mark?" She clutched her throat, shock coursing through her veins. The woman took a step closer, rage and fear melding in her gaze. "You think this is a family vacation? Mark has been hiding the truth about your inheritance. He's been pocketing money from the family trust while leaving you all in the dark." Those words sliced through Ethel, sharp and unforgiving. Gasps erupted around her, the truth rumbling like a distant storm. She could barely breathe, limbs trembling. Her son's secret felt like a betrayal, shoots of disbelief growing into thorns of anger. "Mom, wait, it's not," Mark began, scrambling as faces turned toward him, accusation sharp in their eyes. "Not everything is as it seems," the woman shouted, shaking with emotion. Ethel felt a rush of adrenaline. She glanced at Mark, the confusion on his face, the fear of being exposed, and let something else lurked there. Desperation? "Ethel!" Mark reached out, but she recoiled as if burned. "Please don't listen to her." Then it happened. Before anyone could process, a loud crash echoed through the hall. A chandelier, heavy and ornate, broke free, crashing right where they'd just been standing. Glass sprayed. Like stars, scattering shock and chaos. In that moment, the collective gasp, the shouts of alarm, the power shifted dramatically. People scrambled, hearts thumping, limbs dancing in panic. Ethel's eyes darted back to Mark, to the shattered pieces on the floor, realizing something darker simmered beneath the surface. The room cleared, people tirelessly rushing to safety. But at the core of the swirl stood Ethel, questioning everything she thought she understood. Was it greed that led Mark astray, or something more heartbreaking? Did he truly betray her, or was he ensnared in forces bigger than either of them? The truth hung in the air like the dust from the fallen pieces, thick and suffocating. What was left? Trust? Love? Family? Could they ever reclaim it after this? Ethel stood frozen in a world suddenly splintered. The chandelier's crash had ripped through the fabric of the family gathering, scattering chaos like fallen leaves in a storm. She felt her heart racing, breath caught in her throat. Mark's pale face hovered in her vision, a whirlwind of emotions twisting behind his eyes. Fear, desperation, guilt. The room, once vibrant, was now a kaleidoscope of shock and panic. People scurried away. Those who had moments ago laughed and chattered like birds. The air thickened like smoke, filled with murmurs that echoed Ethel's own confusion. What just happened? She thought, hands trembling, mind racing. She had entered a nightmare, her world tipping on its axis. She turned back to Mark, who was trying to grasp at her, but she felt a distance grow, a cold chasm widening with every second. Then, like a sudden gust of wind, a figure leaped into the chaos. It was that wild-eyed woman, and Ethel's stomach twisted as memories flashed, fragments of snatched conversations, a vague familiarity she couldn't place. The woman thrust herself between Ethel and Mark, fingers pointed, as if ready to unleash a storm of secrets. "Mark has another secret," she yelled, her voice slicing through the turmoil. Ethel's heart sank even lower, each word landing like heavy stones in her gut. "You think this is just about money? It goes deeper. He owes someone, a lot more than just trust." The crowd hesitated, faces shifting between fear and intrigue. Ethel's breaths came quick, shallow. "What is she talking about?" Her heart pounded, each beat echoing the tumult of her thoughts. Could it get worse than this? The tension in the air felt electric, thickening with impending revelation. "Mom, don't listen to her," Mark shouted. But his voice faltered, desperation pouring out. It rattled Ethel. His panic was real, but why? What kind of truth lay behind that pleading gaze? The woman continued, her voice rising, raw with urgency. "You think those lavish gifts come without a price? Mark made deals with dangerous people. He thought he could protect you all by lying." Gasps ran through the crowd like an electric shock. Ethel's legs felt weak. Shaking hands flew to her mouth as disbelief flooded through her. Was it possible? Apprehension twisted deep inside her, a cold knot closing tighter. "Mark, what is this?" Ethel's voice cracked, her heart racing with the weight of the accusation. She scanned the eyes of her family, disbelief etched on every face. He swallowed hard, and Ethel could see the weight of decision pressing on his shoulders. "It's not what you think. I was trying to shield you from the truth. I had no choice." Just then, a voice cut through the din, stark and heavy. "No choice? You dragged us into this mess, Mark." It was Aunt Linda, stepping forward, eyes blazing. "You included us just to cover your tracks." Mark's defenses crumbled, and something cracked in her heart. Ethel realized she was standing at the edge of a chasm, a place where shadows of deceit loomed large between them. Then, all at once, the lights flickered, plunging the hall into darkness. Gasps exploded as screams followed, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just ensued. In that instant, fiery flashes illuminated the faces, revealing wide eyes and frozen expressions. Ethel's mind reeled as she felt it. A surge of something beyond fear, something far more chilling. Then, just as suddenly, the lights returned, revealing not just confusion, but a scene in disarray. Mark was gone, vanished. The room erupted in frantic shouts. Confusion swirled as Ethel grabbed onto a nearby table for support. The wild-eyed woman stepped back, confusion mixed with something else. Relief? Ethel's gut twisted as she caught the truth shimmer through the chaos. What happened to Mark? The question hung in the air, heavy and full of dread. As the panic swirled around her, Ethel felt a chilling realization. This wasn't just a family reunion gone wrong. It was a reckoning. But where had Mark gone? Was he hiding? Or had he fled from something monstrous? In that moment, everything she thought she knew shattered, leaving behind echoes of questions, urgency in the air, shadows of choices yet to come. Ethel stood frozen, fear gripping her heart. The room was a whirlwind of confusion. Shadows flickered, laughter turned to panic, and Mark was nowhere to be. "Scene! Where is he?" Her voice broke the chaos, but no one answered. The wild-eyed woman looked around, fear etched on her face. "He can't hide forever," she shouted, catching Ethel's attention. There was desperation in the woman's gaze. "He has to come clean." But why was this stranger so invested? Ethel's chest tightened. "What else do you know?" she pressed, heart pounding. She was desperate for answers, desperate for clarity in the storm of chaos. Before the woman could respond, the crowd surged toward the entrance, people shouting, stumbling over one another in their rush for safety. Ethel strained to see, to hear something solid in the confusion. And then it happened. A loud bang. The doors of the ballroom flew open, and in burst a figure, disheveled and wild, clothes torn, breathless. Ethel squinted through the chaos, her breath hitching. It was Alex, her grandson, eyes wide with fright. "Grandma, you have to help! The paramedics, they need you!" Ethel's heart skipped. "Help? What are you talking about?" Panic clawed at her throat. The laughter of moments before was a distant memory, replaced by the urgent reality of dread. "There's been an accident! Down by the beach!" Alex shouted. urgency boiling in his voice. "They need everyone to go. Mom, Dad, they're all down there." Ethel's mind raced. Beach? What could have happened? "What do you mean, Alex? What kind of accident?" Her hands trembled, catching the outweighed weight of the afternoon's revelations. "The wind! It blew the tents." "They didn't get out in time." His voice broke. The flatness of the words hit her like a slap. The reality wrapped itself around her. Her family, her children, her grandchildren. Dear God. Suddenly, a commotion arose at the entrance. A few hysterical voices erupted. "They're trying. They're still missing." Ethel's heart sank further, and in a mere second, the enormity of it washed over her. Then, from the edge of the chaos, emerged a tall figure. Disheveled hair, a wild look in his eyes. It was Mark, covered in sand and debris, panting heavily. I'm here. I was there." "Mark!" Ethel yelled. But she tugged at her breath, caught between the urge to scream, to run to him, and the suffocating fear of losing everything. "What happened? I was trying to get people out. I didn't know. They were trapped." His voice cracked. "Mom, it was all because of me. I thought—" Ethel stepped back, her heart ripping apart with the weight of betrayal, horror, and maternal instinct. "What do you mean? Why were you there, Mark?" The words slipped out, cold and accusing. "Because I was trying to protect you. The money, the lies," he stammered, tears brimming in his eyes. "I thought it would be safer if you didn't know. They were getting too close." "Close to what? What have you done?" Ethel's heart raced faster now, each beat threatening to tear her apart. She was standing at the edge of truth, and it was swirling like a relentless storm. Mark's eyes glistened with the truth she had feared above all else. Before he could reply, the room dimmed again, and something heavy fell. A spotlight flickered on, illuminating Alex's face, tense, terrified. "They found someone! They got someone from the wreck!" Ethel's breath hitched as dread pulled in her stomach. "Who?" The question was a whisper, but it echoed like thunder in her ears. "The beach was blocked! They didn't find—" Alex's voice trembled, anguish washing over him. "They couldn't save her in time, Grandma." Those words hit Ethel like a punch. Her knees felt weak. "Who?" she pleaded, heart pounding. "Who are you talking about?" It's Aunt Linda." Shock froze her in place. The world blurred around her, panic coursed through her veins like ice water. Everything felt as if it were falling apart. Truth and lies tangled into a macabre tapestry of grief. Ethel grasped the table for support, but all she could feel was darkness creeping closer. Mark stumbled backward, eyes wide with horror. "No, no, Mom!" Ethel lifted her eyes to his, and in that moment, everything twisted. This was not just about secrets or betrayal anymore. It was about loss, the impending weight of what had just disappeared. Those vibrations of family ties now felt like shackles. The truth hung in the air, thick and agonizing. Questions swarmed around her like bees. Had Mark's secrets led to this? The shattered dreams, now lost in a whirlwind of tragedy. Could they survive this? Storn? Ethel stood on the precipice of her family's fate, the stark realization dawning on her. This wasn't only about discovering the hidden truths. They had uncovered something far more devastating. Would they recover from this? Or was it too late? Ethel's heart raced, fear gripping her tighter than ever. Aunt Linda was gone. The very thought sent shivers down her spine, a chill that crept into her bones. The room buzzed with confusion, panic flipping her stomach. Mark stood there, eyes darting around, confusion mixing with horror. "Not Linda, not now," he stammered, panic etching his features, tears glistening in his eyes. Ethel's gut twisted at the sight of her son. "So were you hiding?" she managed to choke out, her voice trembling. "What else is there?" Before he could respond, a wave of chaos surged. People were still rushing around, shock rippling through the crowd. Ethel felt a nagging dread in her gut. Was there more to all of this? Then, out of the corner of her eye, she spotted the wild-eyed woman again, a figure who seemed to emerge from the shadows with purpose. Ethel's pulse quickened. "You!" she shouted, trying to cut through the commotion. "What do you know? Why are you here? What does Mark have to do with this?" The woman hesitated, then took a deep breath, her gaze piercing. "I didn't want it to come to this, but it's time. For the truth?" Ethel's mind swirled. "What do you mean? You're talking about Mark? What does he have to do with Linda?" The woman straightened, resolve hardening in her eyes. "Because Linda, she was the only one who knew. She held the key to everything. The inheritance, the truth behind Mark's actions. Suddenly, a commotion erupted from the entrance. Someone was pushing through, shouting, "Clear the way! Make room!" Panic surged as the crowd parted. Ethel's heart raced. Her thoughts jumbled. What now? The figure that emerged was familiar yet haunting. An old man, his hair wild and white, eyes blazing with urgency. "Get away from him!" he shouted at Mark, voice cracking with emotion. "You have to leave. You have no idea what you've unleashed." Ethel felt her stomach drop. "Who are you?" she asked, a thread of fear weaved within her voice. "What do you know about my family?" The old man huffed, catching his breath, glancing back at the chaos. "I warned you all. There are people who want the truth to remain hidden, and Linda knew everything. You're in danger." "Danger? What do you mean?" Ethel could hardly breathe. Her family was breaking apart before her eyes, and now the threat of danger loomed too. "She was going to expose it," he continued, voice trembling with urgency. "Mark thought he could shield everyone, but it's too late." Ethel clenched her fists, anger clashing with confusion. "Expose what?" The old man stepped closer, sincerity and fear swirling in his gaze. "Your family's ties run deeper than money. The inheritance wasn't just financial. It was tied to something far more sinister. A secret that could tear you apart. Mark's decisions put everyone at risk." "What secret?" Ethel whispered, her voice barely a breath. But before he could respond, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the ballroom. Ethel's heart jumped into her throat as the chandelier began to wobble violently again. A horrifying twist of fate. This time, It seemed as if it would fall right where they stood. Mark pushed past Ethel, arms outstretched to his mother. "Mom, get back!" he shouted. But the old man had already lunged toward them, panic in his eyes. In that split second, everything splintered. The chandelier fell, shattering the tension like fragile glass. Ethel felt a rush of air, an overwhelming pull as chaos erupted around her. Shadows danced, screams pierced the air, and everything turned into a blur. When the dust settled, Ethel opened her eyes, breathless. She was on the ground, heart hammering. The old man lay beside her, stunned but alive. But Mark, he was gone, just vanished into thin air. Gasps sped through the crowd. Ethel's heart stopped. "What happened?" she gasped, tears pooling in her eyes. Then, in the chaos, a familiar voice echoed through the crowd. It was Alex. "Grandma, over here!" They turned in sync, but it wasn't just Mark they were missing. From the shadows, another figure stepped forward. Ethel's pulse raced. Again, it was her sister, Claire, long thought dead. "Mom," Claire breathed, voice full of pain and longing. How could this be? Ethel's heart shattered anew. The truth, a tangled mess of secrets, pain, and love, hung thick in the air, like smoke. Everything was changing. But could anything ever truly come to light? Ethel staggered back as the weight of what had been lost settled heavily on her chest. Ethel stood there, breathless, staring at Claire. The world around her spun like a dizzying carousel. Claire? The name felt foreign on her tongue, heavy with unspoken years. She wanted to reach out, to hug her sister, but uncertainty gripped her heart. How are you here?" Ethel's voice trembled, eyes searching Claire's for answers. In this chaos, in this whirlwind of revelation, she felt lost again. It was all too much. Claire's eyes held layers of pain and longing. "I thought I had lost you. I thought I would never come back." She looked around, scanning the chaos, worry etched on her face. "But now it's worse. We need to leave. It's not safe." "What do you mean?" Ethel swallowed hard, the lump in her throat growing. What had happened to her sister? Where had she been all these years? Safe from home. Before Claire could sting, pierce the silence. An explosion, a loud pop, echoed through the hall as the glass from the shattered chandelier cut through the air. Ethel ducked, heart racing. "Mom!" Alex screamed, rushing to her side, eyes wide with terror. "Get back!" Claire shouted, shoving them aside as shards fell, glass raining like deadly confetti. Ethel's hands trembled, reaching for Alex, but Claire's voice was a lifeline. "Focus! We need to get out!" But before they could move, a loud, frenzied scream erupted from someone in the back of the crowd. Ethel's head whipped around. What? As if he'd run a marathon. "Get away from them!" he yelled, wild and desperate. Mark's voice broke through the confusion, but there was something raw hidden beneath his urgency. "He's coming for all of us!" Ethel felt a chill race up her spine. Who's coming? But just as he would have answered, another sound pierced the air, louder than the chaos. Gunshots. Her heart stopped. "No!" Ethel shouted, fear gripping her. Alex screamed. Claire grabbed hold of her, keeping her steady. The world shifted painfully as bodies began to scatter. Some falling, some hitting the ground. Ethel's hands shook as she turned to Mark. "What did you do?" The accusation rang out, filled with anger and desperation. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he yelled, pleading in his shaking tone. "They found out. I had to protect us." "Protect us?" Ethel's heart twisted, raw disbelief rippling through her. How could this be happening? As the chaos swirled, another person stumbled into view. A woman, wild-eyed and breathless. "He's behind you, Mark! He's right there!" Mark spun around, eyes widening. And then, a figure stepped from the shadows, cloaked in darkness. Someone Ethel didn't recognize. But the air shifted, crackling with tension. The atmosphere thickened. "Where's the money, Mark?" came the gravelly voice. Ethel's heart raced. "What money?" she demanded. But the question fell into a void of urgency. She tried to catch Mark's gaze, but he looked like a cornered animal. "I did it for us!" Mark shouted again, but the desperation in his voice felt hollow. And before they could react, a shot rang out, echoing in the hall. Ethel ducked, hand instinctively covering Alex's ears. What was happening? Breathless, she toned back to see Mark fall, knee buckling, shock spreading across his face. "No!" Ethel cried, the sound tearing from her throat. "Mark!" But the moment hung heavy. Silence followed the echo of gunfire. A thick, oppressive silence where all hope seemed to evaporate. Ethel trembled, tears streaming down her face as she watched the chaos unfold. And then all at once, every shadow in the hall seemed to congeal, flickering like a dying light. "Why did it have to end like this?" Claire cried out, and Ethel felt the ground tremble beneath her feet. But the shock twisted deeper. It wasn't just Mark lying there. Something in his eyes, even in the brief moments of his fading consciousness, whispered secrets she could barely grasp. As he looked at her, confusion painted across his features. He mouthed a word that sent Ethel's heart racing. "Run." With that, the world around her shattered. What secrets had he buried? What lies unfolded in this family tragedy? The truth now felt like a fragile thread unspooling through the air. Ethel glanced back at Claire, then Alex. Her family was fraying, unraveling into darkness. "Mom!" Alex yelled, pulling her back to earth. "We need to go!" But as she turned to run, the heavy weight of her past and the unbearable burden of what could come surged within her. Could they escape the storm swirling around them? Or would the truth finally come crashing down, tearing their family apart once and for all? Ethel hesitated, heart pounding. The journey into darkness was just beginning, and she stood at the edge, ready to plunge into the unknown. What lay ahead could change everything. Would they make it through, or would the shadows consume them whole? Ethel hesitated, heart pounding. The journey into darkness was just beginning. She stood at the edge, ready to plunge into the unknown. What lay ahead could change everything. Could they escape the storm swirling around them? Or would the truth finally come crashing down, tearing their family apart once and for all? "Mom, we need to go!" Alex shouted, pulling her back to the present. The room echoed with fear and confusion. Suddenly, a loud bang jolted everyone. A door slammed open, and in rushed a man in a dark suit. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "Everyone needs to evacuate, now!" he barked, eyes darting around the room. Ethel's mind raced. Who was he? What was happening? Mark staggered backward, the panic in his eyes growing more frantic. "What do you mean?" "There's a gas leak," the man yelled. "We have to clear this building fast." Gasps filled the air as people began to scream, push, and shove. Anxiety igniting chaos in the already frenzied room. Ethel felt Alex clutching her hand tighter. "We can't stay here," he urged, voice trembling. The urgency hit everyone like a wave. Ethel's heart raced. "Where's Mark? Where's Claire?" She turned to find them, but the crowd thickened like smoke. Panic swirled around her, the room a blur of movement and fear. "Mark!" she called, but he was lost in the throng. A chill crept down her spine. Where could he be? Then a loud footstep caught her attention. A figure darted through the commotion, pushing past. Ethel squinted. "Mark?" she gasped. It wasn't him. It was the wild-eyed woman. She was running straight for her. "Ethel, you need to listen!" Her voice was frantic, breaking through the noise. "The inheritance. It's tied to the leak." "What?" Ethel's throat tightened. "What are you talking about? The money you thought was safe? It's part of a contract. Linda found out." The woman was breathing heavily, eyes wild with fear. "She tried to get it back, but they wouldn't let her. They're coming for you." Fear rippled through Ethel. "Who are they?" At that moment, a dull thud echoed through the hall. The lights flickered again, plunging everything into darkness. Ethel clutched Alex, heart racing. The sudden silence felt heavy and oppressive. Burst in. It was someone Ethel never expected. The old man from moments before. But he looked different. Eyes filled with sorrow. Voice shaky. "Mark!" he shouted. "You need to stop!" But just then, he stumbled, collapsing to the ground. A realization struck Ethel like ice water. She rushed forward, Alex still gripping her hand. But her heart sank. The old man's hand fell limp by his side. In shock, Ethel knelt beside him. "What happened?" she cried, the gravity of the situation pressing down. Then, with his last breath, he whispered, "They found the files." The truth. Everything felt like it was swirling in a dizzying dance. Mark stood frozen, mouth agape over her. What truth? What files? And then, from the chaos, another bang. The windows shattered, glass raining down like glittering knives. A rush of fresh air filled the room, but it felt tainted with darkness. "Get out!" someone screamed, desperation flooding the hall. Ethel stood there, heart racing. The old man's words echoed in her mind. What had he meant? And then, as she glanced around, she paused. A chilling realization washed over her. In the crowd, she saw a face she had thought she would never see again. It was Linda, alive and well, lurking in the back, a smile twisting across her lips, as if knowing something they all didn't. "Linda!" Ethel gasped, eyes wide with shock. But there was no time to process. Chaos erupted around her, people yelling and pushing their way out. The truth was waiting to be unspooled. But all Ethel could feel was the tight grip of fear around her heart. With a final glance at Linda, she turned and ran, Alex tugging at her sleeve, the questions heavy in the air. What secrets were buried? How deep did the betrayal run? And most importantly, was anyone really safe? The weight of uncertainty followed them, a shadow looming, waiting to unveil itself when they least expected it. Ethel's breath caught in her throat, the thrill of impending chaos lingering like a heavy mist. What would be waiting for them on the other side? Ethel stood there, breath racing, as the crowd pushed her forward. Alex clutched her hand, his eyes wide with fright. They needed to escape. Mark's words echoed in her mind. Run! The chaotic room morphed into a blur of panic. But there was no time to waste. "Mom, we have to go!" Alex shouted over the noise. Ethel felt a sense of urgency tightening in her chest. Just then, Linda's smile twisted in the shadows, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Ethel turned her back on her sister, the knot of confusion tightening further. How could Linda be here? She grabbed Alex's arm, pulling him through the throng, desperately searching for an exit. Each face surged past her like a wave, fear embedded in their eyes. As they neared the door, a hand gripped her shoulder sharply. "Ethel!" It was Mark, panting, wild-eyed. "You can't leave!" "Why not?" she spat, feeling the heat rise in her face. What else could possibly go wrong? But before Mark could respond, the lights flickered violently again. The room quaked, and a deafening sound tore through the air. Ethel's heart leaped. Was it another explosion? "Everyone out!" The stranger, still shouting from earlier, pushed through the crowd, his face pale. "Now, this is an emergency." Ethel turned, panic spilling through her like fire. Where was the exit? She felt Alex tugging her toward the light. But before she could move, another figure appeared. A man, tall and imposing. "Mark!" he shouted, eyes stormy. "Get away from them!" Ethel's breath caught. Who was this man? He looked familiar, yet terrifying. Mark froze, fear clouding his features. "What do you want?" The man stepped closer, voice low but fierce. "You sold us out, Mark. You think we'd let you walk away?" "What are you talking about?" Ethel's voice trembled. The room resonated with confusion, whispers racing through the crowd. "I have nothing to say to you," Mark shouted back, defiance etched on his face. But before he could speak again, there was a shattering sound. The glass of another chandelier cascaded to the ground. breaking the moment in a shower of glittering shards. Ethel ducked just as someone screamed, "Get down!" The chaos erupted around them again. But Ethel's gaze snapped back to the imposing figure. He had pulled out something shiny, held it to the light. A gun. "That's not how you protect your family," he growled at Mark, a twisted smile creeping across his face. "You're just protecting yourself." Ethel's heart raced. "You don't want to do this," she cried, fear thrumming through her veins. But the man merely chuckled, eyes glinting. "You don't understand. This isn't just about you." Suddenly, the door slammed open, and in stormed another familiar face. Aunt Linda, eyes blazing with fury. "You shouldn't be here. What are you doing?" Ethel whispered, heart racing. As Linda moved closer, everything changed. "The truth must be unveiled," she said, her voice low and steady. "And you all need to know what Mark has done." The crowd fell silent, and in that stillness, Ethel felt the ground beneath her shift. What truth? Mark's expression morphed to one of panic. "No, Linda, please, not now!" But she continued. "He has been lying, not just to you, Ethel, to all of us. He didn't just hide money. He's been involved in something far darker." The air thickened with dread. Ethel's stomach turned. "What do you mean?" "Mark didn't just mismanage the inheritance. He used it to fund actions against our family." Her head. "That can't be true." But the look on Mark's face said it all. Shame and fear danced in his eyes, revealing something darker lurking beneath the surface. The truth was unfurling, and it felt like everything was crumbling. "Listen to me," Mark pleaded, voice cracking. "It's not what you think." But before he could finish, the room exploded into chaos. A violent roar echoed outside, car engines screeching, tires spinning. The turmoil rushed in like a storm. "What's happening?" Ethel yelled, heart racing. Someone rushed in from outside, eyes wide with terror. "The police are here! They're looking for Mark!" Ethel's chest tightened. Mark's secrets were spilling out, and now it was too late. Panic surged through her. Alex's grip tightened around her hand. "Mom?" She met Alex's eyes, reading the fear reflected back at her. "We need to get out. Now." Just as she turned to flee, the imposing figure stepped closer, gun aimed. "You're not going anywhere until we get answers." The room felt like it was closing in. Tension hung thick, fears colliding. Ethel couldn't breathe. And then, in a shocking twist, Mark stepped in front of her. "If you want me, you'll have to take her, too." Ethel gasped. "What are you doing?" But Mark's eyes were fierce, and in a heartbeat, he launched himself at the man, grappling for the gun. Ethel screamed, voice slicing through the chaos. The shot rung out. Time froze. Smoke filled the air. Shadows danced in. The chaos. Ethel's heart shattered. Then nothing. Silence. The truth might just have ripped them all apart. What would be left? The shot rang out like thunder. Ethel's heart stopped. A scream choked in her throat as Mark dove toward the man, and everything shifted. Time seemed suspended, stretched to its breaking point. In that horrifying instant, Ethel felt air rush from her lungs. She watched as Mark fell backward, crashing to the ground. Clutching his side, a dark stain blossoming on his shirt. "No, Mark!" Her voice cracked, breaking free like shattered glass. The imposing figure turned, shock her. She reached for Mark, fear pulling her forward. His breath was shallow, bloody gasps escaping from between his clenched teeth. "Mom, I'm..." His voice was barely a whisper. Panic squeezed her chest, constricting around her heart. Then she noticed it, a glimmer beneath the chaos, something hidden amidst the turmoil. With a trembling hand, Ethel grasped the pool of papers Mark had dropped. Trust documents, sheets revealing secrets, contracts signed in urgency. Words like inheritance, debt, and the trail danced mockingly before her eyes. But just as she studied them, the wild-eyed woman from earlier surged forward. "You don't understand! It's worse than you think! Linda!" An explosion interrupted her. Suddenly, a flash of light burst forth outside the window, blinding everyone. People screamed, diving for cover as the chaos escalated. Ethel shielded Alex with her body, heart racing. What was happening? And then, amidst the smoke and screaming, everything transformed. A figure emerged from the haze. Clara, Ethel's sister, but she looked different, like a ghost reborn. "Ethel!" she cried, extending her arms, but her eyes were dark, hollow. "You have to listen. It's not just about the family. Mark, he was protecting something far more dangerous." "Clara?" Ethel's throat tightened. Words tangled in disbelief. "What do you mean? We thought you were gone." Clara stepped closer, urgency palpable in her voice. "Mark isn't the only one hiding the truth. The inheritance, it's cursed." Linda uncovered something sinister, something connected to Mark's ties. Ethel's heart raced faster, memories flooding. Her laughter shared, tears shed, the deep-rooted bond of family. But now shadows loomed over it all, threatening to swallow them whole. "What are you saying?" she whispered, fear piercing like ice. Before Clara could respond, the imposing figure lunged forward, gun still aimed, resolution hardening in his gaze. "Enough of this!" he shouted. "The truth ends here!" Ethel's body froze, instincts firing to life. But just as he prepared to pull the trigger, something shocking occurred. A loud crash exploded from the back of the room, crates collapsing, dust billowing as a man burst through, clothes tattered, breathless. "Stop! Don't shoot!" Everyone turned in shock. The man, unfamiliar, yet somehow familiar, rushed toward them. "Mark, I know, I found it. We have to." In a dizzying turn, Ethel realized with a jolt that this man was Michael, the family's long-lost uncle. The truth struck her harder than any bullet. "Michael?" she gasped. "You're alive?" "I have to explain," he roared, urgency swelling in his voice. "It all ties back. Linda knew too much. They found her." Ethel's world spun. Linda, what did you mean? The walls felt like they were closing in, all questions overshadowed by the gravity of their reality. But before Michael could answer, a thunderous noise erupted. A wall crumbled, shaking the very foundations of the building. Ethel's heart raced. "Run! Everyone out!" she shouted, pulling Alex and racing toward the exit. The truth hung in the air like smoke. Secrets were shattering, lives unraveling. But deep down, a chilling thought settled in her mind. If Mark was protecting them from something dark, then what had they truly unleashed upon themselves? With every passing moment, she felt the weight of the world closing in. "What have we done?" she murmured, fading breathless into the chaos as the realization dawned. The true battle was just beginning. Ethel grabbed Alex's hand as they plunged into the chaos of the hall. Heart racing, she felt the weight of everything pressing down. Mark was down, but they had to get out. "Come on! We can't stay here!" she shouted, urgency spilling into her voice. The hall echoed with screams and panic as people rushed toward the exits, hearts pounding like drums. She couldn't look back, couldn't let fear freeze her. The shadows hovered, their secrets waiting just behind her, like predator stalking prey. "Mom!" Alex yelled, squeezing her hand tighter as they weaved through the fearful crowd. "Where's Mark?" Tears threatened to spill. "We'll come back for him, I promise." But a part of her wondered if they could. Just ahead, Aunt Linda tried to tug Mark from the ground, but he only lay crumpled against the wood floor. Desperation filled Ethel's chest. Could they save him? The truth punched at her like a fist. What if this was her last chance to protect her family? "Clara, help me!" Linda shouted, her voice raw with emotion. Ethel turned to see Clara, hovering just outside the wave of chaos. Frozen with fear, guilt flashed through her. "Clara, grab him!" But Clara hesitated, her eyes darting to the imposing figure in the corner. "They're everywhere, Ethel," she shouted, tremors of fear lining her voice. Ethel's heart ached as she struggled to process the scene. "We can't abandon him." A loud crash echoed, and the man with the gun swung around, panic flashing in his eyes. "You need to leave, now," with every second wasted. The tension in the room surged, bodies recoiling in terror. The air grew thick. Ethel pulled Alex toward the exit, breath hitching. Was this really the end? Suddenly, Michael lunged, stumbling over debris, his face set with fierce determination. "We can't leave him. It's not safe." Ethel's voice hardened. "We're then not safe anywhere." She felt her chest tightening, each breath more difficult than the last. "Mark, you have to get up!" But all he could do was stare into the fading light, eyes dimming. A dreadful silence cloaked the room, and Ethel tasted despair on her tongue. In that moment, the doorway swung open, revealing the evening sky, swirling with colors of crimson and gold. But darkness loomed like a shroud over their world. Ethel could feel the pulse of urgency rising in her veins. "We can't waste any more time," She turned to Alex, and his eyes held hers tightly, wide with fear. "Okay, we're going," she murmured, swiping away a tear. Just as they turned to flee, Clara lunged forward, shouting, "I got this! I'll bring him!" Determination lit her face. Ethel's pulse quickened. Could this truly be happening? As Clara shifted into action, Ethel felt another pang of guilt wash over her. She didn't want to leave anyone behind, but the crowd surged again, pulling them away. "Let's go!" Ethel shouted, aiming for the exit, panic driving her forward. She felt the familiar warmth of Alex against her. His trust in her fed her resolve. Outside, the sky swirled in oranges and purples. The world held a strange beauty that contrasted with the storm they had just escaped. But was it truly over? Alex gasped, pointing toward the street, where emergency lights flashed. "They're coming for us!" Ethel's heart raced. They couldn't stop. Now, when the truth was out there, swirling like leaves in the wind, "Get down!" she commanded, as sirens wailed into the distance. The sights and sounds collided in her mind, a chaos of grief and relief. But inside, the doubts lingered. What secrets would they uncover? The revelations waited just beyond the horizon. And then the truth stirred inside her, a whisper of hope amid despair. With every step, Ethel felt the fire of resilience igniting her heart. No matter what came next, they would find a way. "Together," she whispered, squeezing Alex's hand. "Always." As they stepped forward into the unknown, a new dawn awaited. The journey was far from over, but Ethel knew they would face it together. No secrets could tear them apart now. But just then, in the distance, they heard voices rising, a cacophony that carried both fear and resolution, and Ethel realized there was so much more at stake than just their family. The shadows lurked still, and the truth yearned to be uncovered. Ethel turned, ready to face whatever lay ahead. You need to watch this now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait another second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Your support matters.